One of the cakes a lot of people have never heard of is known as the hummingbird cake. Take everything that's delicious in a carrot cake, but swap out the shredded carrots for bananas. This thing is incredible. Founded in Jamaica, this cake is a southern staple. We're gonna coat it in a buttercream cheese. It is incredibly delicious. I know you and your family are gonna love it, but first, let's start off by knocking out some prep. Sound good? Let's bake.
I'm going to add 2 cups of pecan pieces. You could use pecan halves or even walnuts are great here. Right to my food processor, and I'm going to pulse it about 20 to 30 times or until they are roughly a 1/4 inch by 1/4 inch in size. You could absolutely do this with a knife on your cutting board, and it's totally fine if they aren't perfectly uniform. They can be bigger or smaller. Don't stress out about it. Then what I'm going to do is evenly spread them out on a sheet tray lined with parchment paper, and then holy smokes, totally forgot to put my apron on. All right. Going in the oven, 350 degrees Fahrenheit for about 5 to 6 minutes. Just want to get a gentle toast on them. Then in the meantime, let's assemble our dry ingredients. In a large bowl, I have 3 cups of all-purpose flour. I'm next going to add in 1 teaspoon of coarse salt, next 1 teaspoon of baking powder, then 1 teaspoon of baking soda, 1 teaspoon of ground cinnamon, and then only a 1/2 teaspoon of ground nutmeg. For some sweetness, 1 cup of granulated sugar, 1 1/4 cups of packed light brown sugar. Then I'm going to add in a 1/4 cup of cornstarch. This will turn my flour almost into cake flour. It will ensure that our cake is extremely tender and moist. Perfect if you don't have access to cake flour. That's why I love doing it. Whisk it together until all those dry ingredients are combined. Then we're just going to briefly set them to the side. And hey, the pecans are done. Let's pull them out and cool them down to room temperature.
And now for the wet ingredients, it starts with the bananas. We need to mash these up. Now I've got 6 medium to large size bananas, which is going to make up about 3 cups mashed. So all we're going to do is peel them and put them right in a bowl and then mash them with the fork. Now, I like really ripe bananas. A little bit of brown on there, no problem. That just means it's going to be that much more delicious, that much more intense flavor of bananas. So for me, I like them more on the brown side. If they're too raw, so to speak, like they're just not in season, they're not ripe, it's not going to taste right. You're going to have that raw taste in there. So brown is good.
Just continuing peeling up the bananas and adding them to that large bowl, and then using a fork, mash them very well until it becomes smooth. It's okay if there's a little bit of chunks in there, no problem at all, but it should look just like this. Next, I'm going to add in 6 large eggs. Does not matter if they're cooled or room temperature. Then using a whisk, break up the yolks and then whisk it until it is completely combined. At this stage, we are going to add in 2 teaspoons of vanilla extract, an 8-ounce can of crushed pineapple. Be sure to get the one in juice, not syrup. It'll make it way too crazy sweet. Then 1 1/2 cups of neutral flavored oil. And just whisk it until it's mixed together.
And then once all the wet ingredients are combined, all we're going to do is add it right over to the bowl with all the dry ingredients. And then do not forget, okay, we've got one last thing. Got about mess. All right, I'm going to have to pick that up. We got about 1 1/2 cups of the pecans that we need to add in here as well. Excuse me while I clean this up.
Ridiculous. I definitely have my dad's clumsiness, and it's showing right here. Be sure to reserve a 1/4 cup of these for garnish a little bit later. Just adding in the rest of those pecans that I spilled on the table. So ridiculous. Whisk everything together until it is completely combined. Then we're going to briefly set them to the side. Let's bring out 3 9-inch cake pans. I'm going to take some unsalted butter and just rub it down all over the inside. You could absolutely just spray this with some non-stick spray, totally up to you. Then I've got some 9-inch parchment paper rounds, which I'm going to press in there. This is going to ensure our cake stays really moist. I love doing this. If you don't have cake rounds, you can absolutely make it arts and crafts time and cut these out from a regular sheet of parchment paper. Now what I want to do is evenly distribute the batter between each cake pan. The way that I do this is use an 8-ounce ladle and go back and forth through each pan until all of the batter is completely used up. All right, head over to the oven on the middle rack at 350 degrees Fahrenheit. It's going to take in between 30 and 32 minutes for our cakes to finish up cooking. They should be firm in the center, have risen a little bit, and a little bit brown around the outside edges, just like this. Okay, resting on a rack until it is completely cool, which can take about 90 minutes and up to 2 hours. But to help speed up the process, after about 45 minutes, we're going to remove the cake from the cake pans. That's why this parchment paper is awesome, because the cake should come right out. And we're just going to set it on the rack to help cool it a little bit quicker. We might be able to get this done in about an hour and 15 minutes total.
And it doesn't matter what cake you make. The hardest part is always the waiting game, taking the time to make sure the cakes are at room temperature before we frost them up. But with about 20, 30 minutes or so left in that cooling process, we can make our frosting. And this uses a classic cream cheese buttercream frosting. So I've got a stand mixer here with the whip attachment. What we're going to do now is add in 1 pound of full fat cream cheese and 2 sticks or 1 cup of softened unsalted butter.
Just going to raise up the bowl on my stand mixer, and I'm going to turn it on to medium speed for a second, then crank it on to high speed. We're going to whip this for about 5 to 7 minutes or until it becomes light and fluffy just like this. Should have a nice white color in appearance. Now what I'm going to do is turn it off or turn it completely down to low speed. You be the judge here. I'm going to add in 7 total cups of powdered sugar, just 1 cup at a time. I know that seems like a lot of sugar, but powdered sugar is not nearly as intense in sweet flavor as regular granulated sugar. Then once that is in there, I'm going to add in 2 teaspoons of vanilla extract. I'm going to turn the speed up a little bit more to medium-high, and let it whip for another minute or two just to make sure all the ingredients are combined.
And I sometimes like to pop that cream cheese frosting in the refrigerator for like 10 minutes. It can get pretty hot when whipping it in the stand mixer. The fridge will just sort of help tighten it up. It will still be very easy to spread. It's just a quick little thing that I like to do. Now, when it comes to prepping up these cakes so they can be frosted, it's the exact same process of in my funfetti cake or my coconut cake. We are going to slice off the top using a serrated knife to make it nice and flat and even for frosting it up. This is why I always say it doesn't matter if the center sinks a little bit. We're slicing it off anyways. All right, here's all we do to do it. Be sure first to remove that parchment paper.
Again, just using a serrated knife to slice off the top of each of these cakes so that they're easy to stack up when frosting. Speaking of frosting, I have one of these turntable cake stands. If you bake a lot of cakes, these are awesome for frosting. All right, let's add a tablespoon of our cream cheese frosting right to the top of our cake stand. Then I'm going to add on a 9-inch cardboard cake round. This is to help transport my cake and make sure it stays in one place. Let's add our first bottom layer. Then we're going to add on about 3/4 cup to 1 cup of the cream cheese frosting. Then using a spatula or an offset spatula like I'm using here, just spread the cream cheese back and forth until it's completely covered. Next, we just add on that second layer, do the exact same process as the first. Then repeat the process again with that top third layer. Spread the cream cheese all over, completely covering it, making it as flat as possible. And now for the sides, I'm going to turn the cake stand while just roughly adding on some of the cream cheese. Does not obviously need to be perfect. Why? Because I have one of these cake scrapers. This makes it so easy to smooth everything out. Turn the cake while applying that cake scraper at about a 45-degree angle, and it will completely flatten out. This thing is a game changer when it comes to decorating cakes, and you can actually do the same thing with the top. And this looks awesome, definitely good enough for me. And I'm telling you, that turntable cake stand and that cake scraper are a game changer.
And trust me when I say this, if you don't figure out what's good enough for you, it can drive you crazy trying to get this thing perfect. The cake looks stunning. It's going to be delicious, I promise you. And always go back to these fundamental techniques, whether it's cooking, baking, smoking, you name it. If you put them into practice over and over again, I promise to you that all the homemade food from scratch that you do make is going to be incredible. You're going to be the house on the block that everyone wants to eat at. All right, now to finish this up, we've got a couple things first. I've got some leftover pecans that I told you about, maybe about a 1/4 cup. We're just going to sprinkle it on the top. You can put it in any sort of way that you want. It can be a little design. You be the judge. Then, of course, we're going to slice it up and try it out.
So what I'm going to do is just sprinkle the pecans around the outside of the cake, leaving a little bit of room in the center. This is just a personal choice. You can sprinkle it all over the top if you want. You be the absolute judge here. Then I'm going to transfer the cake using some spatulas. Be super careful here onto this big, beautiful cake round that I'm going to serve it on. Then remember, hot water. Put your knife in there. Dry it off. This is to make nice, clean slices. And so every new slice you take, cream cheese frosting isn't getting everywhere. And look at that.
All right, I'll admit it. I cheated. I tried some. The top that I cut off, yeah, I had to eat it. It was winking at me. It is so moist, so flavorful. It's like the best banana bread you've ever had, plus with cream cheese frosting. I have a feeling you and your family are going to love this. And I forgot completely about my pecan spill mishap. Oh well. If you like this cake, you are going to love my grandma's angel food cake. It is so good. I've got a great recipe video. I'll see you on there.